Hello, this is Marie Boncella. I'm an associate apprentice at Art2Ride, and this is my horse Aria. She's off the track thoroughbred. She's 16 years old. She's sort of off the track. She was bred to race and trained to race, but due to unknown injury, she never did. So here I'm just doing some work in hand with her. I've been riding her since I was 11 years old in a lesson program, and I just ended up buying her because I loved her. And we've been doing Art2Ride for a couple of years, maybe 2 or 1.5 or so. I don't quite remember, but not a super long time. She's work in hand is started out being one of the more difficult things for her, but I think she's picked it up pretty decently. She does a pretty good stretch with the work in hand, so I'm happy with that. I think that's nice. I can see her stretching into the contact. And that there was really good for her, so I'm stopping to give her a treat and switch directions. She learns really well from me rewarding her with treats when she does what I want for her to do. It helps her understand better what it is that I'm asking for. And since work in hand is a little bit difficult for her, kind of the both of us, actually, I just do the work in hand until she gets where I want her to, and I just don't really push it too much. And there was a kid running in the background here, which she kind of has a little bit of a spook at, but yeah, that's all she does, and I just ask her to carry on, and then she's totally fine. She's a little bit dramatic like that sometimes, but it's not too big of a deal. And there she's kind of starting to relax into the stretch again. I need to just soften a little bit. There we go. Help her get down into the stretch there. And the stretch is important for warming up her back, getting her stepping underneath. And you can't really see her hooves because of the grass, but usually at the walk she has kind of an overtrack, which would mean that her back foot is stepping over the hoof print of her front hoof, which is really good. I mean, she's moving really nicely and stepping underneath her body. And she does have a bit of a hay belly right now, but it's with the winter time, it's been really hard to find time to ride. But this week or so now has been really nice, weirdly enough. So we've been just trying to make the most of that. She does have a little bit of a dip behind her saddle, which I'm sure is from back when I first started riding her. I didn't know about getting her over her back, so she was very, very hollow all the time whenever I rode her. And then for a while, when I realized about being hollow, it was before I found out about working over the back and how to move correctly. I thought that all that I needed to do was just bring her head in. So, but luckily I did not spend a lot of time doing that before I found the Art2Ride clinic that I went to, and I found a lot of really useful things there that worked for Aria really, really well. So we've stuck with it. So here I am lunging. She's got some side reins on. Um, they're not very tight, just enough so that if she puts her head way up in the air, it'll kind of just ask her to soften again. And I'll do the same with my lunge line. So now she's going into the trot. For the trot, I think her walk work is pretty solid. The trot is kind of the next big thing we're tackling right now. She has a pretty decent stretch, I think, in the trot. It's a lot more difficult for her to track up, I've noticed. And I would say I think that the way she looks on the lunge is probably better than the riding. I just think that my lunging skills are better than my riding skills at the moment. When I first started doing this work with Aria, I kind of just went back to the basics, went back to the very beginning, and started with work in hand and lunging for like probably a year, just because she was so used to just throwing her head up in the air and going hollow. And it was getting to the point where it was hard to even get her to move forward. So I would say she's made much, much better progress from those couple of years ago when I was trying to figure out how to get a rideable horse. I just felt like something wasn't quite right. And then I found these training methods and it seemed to do wonders for her, so I'm sticking with that. So she's getting really relaxed here. She's stretching. I try to, it's kind of a balance that I'm trying to find with her, and I want to have her go forward and maybe try to track up a little more if she can, and go more into the stretch and like really step underneath herself and push herself forward. But I also don't want to, because if I ask for too much forwardness, she kind of just starts to race around and get very off balance and tense, which is not at all what I want. So I want to push her forward, but I've been a little bit cautious because I don't want to push her too much to where she gets tense. So here I'm just having her take a nice walk again because I feel like she stretches pretty well in the walk. And here we switch directions. Every now and then, after some trotting, if I feel like she's starting to get tired, I'll let her go back to the walk. Just like if she were at a higher level doing like working gaits, I would let her go back to the stretch every once in a while. But I don't think she'll be quite at that point yet. And the reason that I wanted to originally show some canter here, but I just feel like she's not quite ready. She has always had a history of having a really terrible canter. I feel like it makes her tense and it doesn't help the work. So at some point, once she's more balanced and strong, I'm definitely going to start asking for it. But at this point, I just don't really do that too much. She just tends to throw her head up in the air and run. And that just stresses her out, and then it's kind of difficult to get her to come back and focus after that point. And I just thought it would be better for her today to just focus on getting a nice trot. So here at the trot, I feel like she does a pretty good job of stretching, but I do think that I need to maybe have asked her to get a little more impulsion. I just feel like she's taking small steps. Maybe that's just me. I'm sure other associate trainers will see this. Let me know what you think. I'm I'm not I mean, I'm happy with it though. I think it's a better trot than she's had in the past. So, as long as we're making progress, I don't really care how slow it is. Slow the progress is anyway. I think that's nice there. And this direction has always been more difficult for her, so I'm really proud that she seems to be stretching and going forward nicely. That was a nice stretch there. She really seemed to lean into it. And that was nice. So I let her go back to the walk and get real deep in that stretch again. I feel like her walk is pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And then I'm just going to get on here. So in the past, and I think due to her being so hollow and tense, she kind of has had tendency to spook at things like, but she doesn't really do that so much anymore now that I've been working with her. Um, but I think that's made me a little bit shaky in the confidence of my riding. So towards the beginning of the rides, I've noticed I tend to be kind of tense. Um, so I just have to remember to just keep breathing. Um, and I always have to remember that if I feel like she wants to be looking at things or feel like she's not focused on me, I have to remember not to be afraid of the forward motion, and that if she is being active and forward and stepping under, she will be less likely to not focus on me and freak out at other things. So I think it really helps once I get her in the zone. It also helps me to relax a little bit more. And then once I relax, I'm not tense and letting my body get in the way of her movement. And that just helps her focus even more because she's working better. So there's a good stretch there. With the riding, I've noticed, and it might also be partly me and partly her needing to be a little bit more strong. She gets really nice stretches, but she does tend to be really up and down with it, especially in the trot. And I think part of it might just be she's not quite got the feel of it or the habit of it yet. Um, and it could be also my riding. Maybe I'm accidentally letting the contact go to slack for a minute, and I should be like widening my hands more or shortening the reins quicker. But I try to keep the reins a little bit long so that she's got room to stretch, but I do want to also keep the contact so that I can feel her mouth and feel what she's doing. So there she's got good stretch. She kind of just goes down into the stretch and then she comes back up. But I think it's okay as long as I can always get her back down. And I will say it definitely feels different when she stretches versus when she's not. I can definitely feel when she's stepping underneath and lifting her back up into like the saddle and when she's hollow. When she's hollow, she definitely feels more tense and it's more difficult for her to go forward. But when she stretches, it just feels easy and like everything flows forward and she's just floating along the ground, and it's much nicer. And I've also begun to think that maybe part of her going up and down with her head so much could be a saddle fit thing. So I have a Schlesa saddle for her that I've had fitted like a couple years ago or maybe a year ago, and she's kind of been in and out of work just due to my life and me not being able to be as consistent with her as I would like. So I've put in a half pad to kind of help the saddle fit better, but it still might not be perfect. And she's a pretty sensitive horse, so if something's hurting her back, she would definitely let me know. So there, she's getting nice moments where she goes down. She comes back up, but I always kind of manage to get her to come back down into the stretch. And it definitely feels a lot smoother and nice when she stretches. And I think you can tell in the video as well. So I think the more that we do this, the more that we do written work, and the more balanced and strong the both of us become, it'll be a lot easier. Excuse me, a lot easier for her to be consistent in the stretch and be able to maintain it. So when her head goes up, her legs are definitely really choppy and kind of stabbing at the ground. I'm sure you could probably tell, but. And here we're switching directions. Yeah, since the trot is kind of difficult for her, I try not to do too much of it because I don't want her to um, just end up riding with her head in the air, and I don't want her to feel like the work is really difficult. I want her to be like okay with it. I want her to be kind of like, I want her to be confident and feel like she can do it. So I just, whenever she comes up like that, I just ask her to soften. And I sometimes, if she tries to fall in, I'll just give her a little bit of support with my leg and just make sure that she's soft. There. And she has good moments where she comes down, which I'm happy with. And here I think she's starting to get a little bit tired. Because I've noticed when she gets tired, she tends to put her head up more and not quite want to use her back so much. So I think she's just kind of letting me know that it's getting towards the end of our ride and she needs to have a break. So I just kind of keep asking her to soften and keep supporting her with the leg. Um, and I'm looking for her. There we go. There. So I let her have a walk break here, or a walk rather. Like, I don't ask her to trot again because I know she's tired and she's already been riding for quite a while, at least for her. So I just ask her to walk and I ask her to stretch again in the walk. So I always think it's really good for her to warm up and cool down in like a long stretch. So I'm definitely just going to keep doing lots of walk work with her. Um, Still want to work on the trot, but probably going to put a little bit more of an emphasis on walk work, at least until she gets stronger. I'm actually really happy with this ride. Um, there was a lot going on, and she still stayed really focused on me. And although she did have moments where she came up out of the stretch, she was always able to get back down, and we were able to end on this nice note of her having a nice long stretch. So I'm going to keep on working on keeping her more active and getting more consistent in the stretch, and hopefully we're on the right track. So thanks for watching.